Welcome to the CXPod, where we aim to expand people's perception of customer experience management. We know that customer experience goes hand in hand with employee experience, and we believe that a broader and more holistic view might even replace terms like CX and EX with people experience or human experience.
Hello and welcome to the CX Pod, Joanna, and our guest star for today, Michel, or Michael, as some people like to call you.
Yes, I'm sorry, Michel. I almost did it again. Sorry. Welcome to the CX Pod, Michel, and I promise that I will say your name correctly for the rest of this podcast.
Good luck. I will keep you to that, Joanna.
Yeah,
So will I, because she's actually managed to call you Steven as well once.
Yeah.
She did.
I'm going to put it age, so Minetta, you've got this to come. Sorry.
Yeah, sure. That's okay. Blame it on the age. So, Michel Stevens, it's such a pleasure to have you on the podcast. We met as some other guests too at the B2B CX conference in Malmö a while back. And now we're happy to have you here as our guest on the pod. So we have obviously talked to you a little bit before starting the recording. So we've agreed that we're going to call you Michel. But apart from that, welcome so much. And I'm just going to dive right into the first question and ask, who are you? Who is Michel Stevens?
Well, Michel Stevens, or as some foreigners like to call me, Michael Stevens, and some people even call me Steven, just to make things easy. Now, I'm in my fancy 40s. I'm born and raised in Belgium. I am somebody who is, and I'm actually an athlete in a slightly bigger body. About 20 years ago, I stumbled into the magic world of contact centers, which then was still simply called a call center, right? And I wasn't going to stay there for very long because I told myself I hadn't gone to school to end up in a call center, right? And boy, was I wrong. I found it a very special, magical, intriguing place where the world of structure and predictability collided with a world of creativity and empathy and social skills. And I must say that it was fireworks every single day, and I loved it. I roamed that world for about a decade, when all of a sudden I end up in a supermarket bagging my own groceries. And while I'm doing this, I see that the cashier is already figuring out how long it would take me to bag my groceries and how long it would take the next person and the customer after that. And because of that, she wasn't paying attention to me, right? She wasn't greeting me. She failed to notice that I had a loyalty card. She failed to notice that I wasn't going to pay cash. And then it dawned on me, she was doing this because she was maybe distracted or maybe bored. But then I found out that she was actually figuring out when she could take a break, because it was a busy day and she really needed a break that day. And, obviously these things happen in contact centers as well, right? And it also happened in the contact centers that I was running at that time. And I told myself, if I put that much pressure on people to the point they need to go from break to break, then all they can do at best is focus on the transaction. They can't carry the mental load anymore of focusing on the relationship. And that's where I said to myself that I had to make a change. I had to make a change myself to switch from a transactional service model to a relational service model. But then again, and that was my big question, how do you do this, right? How do you do this at scale? How do you change an organization? How do you make sure that everybody in the organization will actually understand what it means to create an experience that is worth talking about? And that's what I've done over the last 10 years or so, aside from drinking coffee, which I really love.
Is that a Belgian thing? I thought it was chocolate.
Yeah, chocolates. No, we are not necessarily known for our good coffee, to be honest. You have to go further down south, I'm afraid. But chocolates are great, though.
Isn't it waffles as well? Belgian waffles.
Yeah, at least.
And beer.
And beer.
Yeah.
Sorry, we're going off topic now.
Yeah. There's always a rabbit hole, right?
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
always a rabbit hole. But Michelle, that's really interesting to hear of your background going from contact centers and then sort of opening up this world of okay, well, what's behind that again? What is the bigger picture within the entire organization that will have this mindset of enabling a contact center to deliver the kind of experience that that they should be delivering?
And I just love how you say, transitioning from a transactional service delivery to a relational service delivery. And also, I wanted to ask, what did you do when you came back from that grocery store? Like, how did you apply that new knowledge or that new insight to your job and to your teams when you came back?
Yeah, so I'm telling this as if it was a single event, right? It's like when you ask, when people think about how is a song created, they think it's a musician, he takes his guitar or she takes a guitar and she starts playing this riff, right? That's not how it works, right? And same for me, it was with a lot of struggles. Yes, I made that realization of, okay, things have to change, but actually making that change and finding evidence that backed up my gut feeling, that was, back in the day, was pretty difficult. But at some point, I made this drastic decision of convincing people around me, okay, guys, we have service levels. Contact centers are ranked by service levels. You have to pick up the phone within that amount of seconds. And I said, you know what? We're not going to do that anymore. We're not going to pick up 90% of our calls within 30 seconds. We're not going to do that. We are going to look at the behavior of our customers. So there is this thing called abandon rate, which is the rate at which customers hang up before they leave, before they get an answer, sorry. And you will always have people who hang up the phone before they actually reach an agent, even if you pick up within 20 seconds. It's something that is a constant thing. But what I said was that we are going to look at behavior of our customers. This means that we are going to focus on the abandon rate. We are going to see when people are going to leave, and we are going to try to pick up the phone before that. And that was a dramatic shift, right? Because all of a sudden you say to people, your most important metric doesn't apply anymore. And there was this great story I like to tell to convince people that it was all make-believe, right? I asked them, why is the service level set at 20 seconds increment? So it's either 90% at 20 seconds, 40 seconds, 60 seconds, etc., etc. And I asked them, do you know why it's 20 seconds? And nobody was able to give me an answer. It was like, I don't know, it's always been that way. And I said, because of the payphones back in the day, who you had to pay for 20 seconds, right? And if you heard the signal, it meant that you have 20 seconds left in a public payphone. And that was, for many people, was an eye-opening moment that they actually started believing in the fact that, yeah, it is actually a little bit of BS that we do it this way. We should actually look at what customer behavior tells us.
It's interesting, and I'm diving right into, like, you're catching me right there with your sort of stories, and I wanted to know, like, I'm pretty sure customers would be willing to wait a little longer if they were assured that they would talk to somebody who was, specifically able to answer their question or help them with their issue. So ensuring that, we're going to make you wait for another 20 or 40 seconds, but when we do answer you, you will be provided with an agent who can actually help with whatever problem we maybe even see that you have, because we have AI who's analyzed something out there, and that, depending on the service that you or the product that you bought. So it's it's and there are so many examples of this, how we got stuck on something just because it used to be that way back in the day. So yeah, I can't think of a single example, of course, right now that I needed it, but yeah.
I think it's a great example.
Yeah, I can tell you other stories as well. Like, for instance, why do we have spring break? Why do we have summer holidays? it's always been that way. Yeah, well, no, it's because we come from an agricultural background and people children
Pick
have to
the
help
potatoes.
on the fields, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. No, I think we could dig so much further into this. I've actually, my son's been working in a call center this summer holiday, and I was so surprised to hear that if they spend more than a minute on solving an issue, that their company that they're co-contracted for, they will not get paid for that call because they've used too long a time to serve the customer. And of course, his mother is like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm not going to name the company, of course, but
Oh, I can think of a few nearby where you live, so I'm not going to either.
Yeah,
So
but
moving on.
it's crazy that we do this. I would have hoped that we would be beyond that point right now, but sadly, that's not the case. And luckily for us, because that's how we make money as well, right?
Yeah. And that brings us to the perfect point of, could you say, what would you say is your field of expertise today, Michel?
Right. Yeah, well, so that depends. If my mom asks it, then I will tell her I make customers happy. That's the easiest thing I can say, and she always goes like, sure, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
With your type of audience, I could safely say that I specialize in customer experience strategy and transformation, and I know it's very broad, but what it boils down to is that I'm always asking, what does your customer need, right? So whenever there is this tactical question like how many service channels are we going to set up, should we offer 24/7 service, or how can we reduce churn with customers in product segment X, then I always try to figure out, what does your customer need? So my work focuses on helping organizations bridge that gap between what their desired customer experience is on the one hand and the reality of what they are delivering. I do this as a consultant at GoCX, which is my own consultancy agency, which I started about 7 years ago. And I also do this at the CX Master Academy, where I'm the course director, where we are on a mission to train 1 million people in customer experience.
Wow. How many have you reached so far?
We are at 11,000 right now. So
Wow.
I still have a way to go.
But it's a nice and hairy goal. And I think, 1 million people, it should definitely be reachable. I think we lost Michel there, didn't we, Joanna?
I think we did.
Yeah, let's wait and see if he is going to click the link again. On that note, I just loved what you mentioned, about picking the potatoes, because I was just thinking about this earlier today as well with the fall. The summer holiday, it's always ends so quickly, and then eventually the autumn holiday or whatever it's called comes, and then nobody really understands why. It's a nice and very welcome break, but then it is to pick the potatoes.
Yeah. Have you got any potatoes to pick?
Actually, I don't, but my kids have been doing some potato picking, for the last few years, because my ex has a cabin and they actually have potato plants. So they grow their own potatoes. So my kids are actually quite, getting experts at potato picking. And strawberries, I think they also have there. So it's, I don't participate, but I get to hear about it. And I suppose if I want to, I could get some potatoes too.
Yeah, but you probably want the strawberries more.
Yeah. And he's back.
Hey.
Yeah, we lost you for a little bit there. Maybe I was thinking maybe you got scared and just decided to leave us, but luckily it was just a sort of failed internet connection.
Yeah.
So
I don't believe that you got scared. And Michel, there's one thing that I need to mention to the other people in the podcast. When we first met at the Business to Business conference, you actually come directly from another conference to our conference, and was, if I remember correctly, you were even going back to another conference. Was that correct?
Yeah, that is actually correct. I had a very crazy flight pattern that week, and I am still making up for the carbon footprint. I just had that week. Yeah, that's true. That's true. I flew
Okay,
in from the
that was
south
just
of
my
Europe,
point.
and then yeah.
Yeah, you definitely don't strike me as somebody who gets scared.
No, we're not that scary. So I'm going to try to take us back on track. And the next question is actually, it's interesting, with regards to what you were just talking about, the call center, and you even mentioned customer experience quite a few times. So I want you to sort of specify for us your definition of the word or the words customer experience. Like, what is the term meaning to you? Like, what does it say? What does it mean? What is customer experience in your experience?
Yeah, well, a definition that I keep seeing and hearing revolves around three things, right? So it's customer, all interactions, and perception. And of course, this is not wrong. Far from it, even. I think that I've used that definition or a variation of customer experience is the result of all interactions as perceived by your customer. I think I've used that myself for years, but I think that there is something lacking, and I've been thinking about this for quite a lot lately. And for me, it revolves around three things: business, customer, and brand. So what I think is closer to reality is that CX is about creating and delivering the value to the customer, the business, and the brand. And if you look at it from that perspective, then our role as CX practitioners or CX professionals is about creating value in those three dimensions: customer, business, and brand.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, well, the thing is that, creating value for the customer is the easiest one to understand, because that is something that we as CX practitioners have been doing forever, right? I mean, we've probably been brought up with that because we have this desire to do good for the customer, and that means that we innately understand what value for the customer is, right? For an airline, for instance, for an airline customer, this might be going from A to B, or if you're on a honeymoon, you can find value in the peace of mind of an economy plus with your regular airliner. But then there is also this duty we have to create value for the business. How do we make the business grow? What are the levers that we're looking at, and how will it help us to achieve more sales or increase profits, right? And although that seems like a mind-numbingly obvious thing to say, I see that this gets overlooked when we're designing very clever things. I remember a case of a shopping mall who at some point decided to convert one of their vacant spots into something they described as a man cave, a place where men could come together while the women went on a shopping spree. Now, before you start raising your eyebrows, this is how they described it at the time, right? Because they figured out that it was of value to their customers to have their male audience pampered with a room with Winchester sofas, a pool table, beer on tap, a place where they could hang out and would actually enjoy going to the mall, to the shopping center. And they couldn't be much more wrong. Yes, the man cave was frequently used, and yes, the male audience enjoyed it, but there was no business value at all. In fact, they saw it was having a negative impact on sales because they actively disrupted the sales process. Couples go to shopping malls together because they want to spend time together, or they need to pick up a gift for a birthday party or whatever, but they do it together. The problem is that we see this everywhere, every day. This is something very common. And yeah, and then there's this third aspect of creating value for the brand, and that is about how do we strengthen our brand so that we make it more memorable or more easily top of mind when the need arises. We make it more distinctive, right? We try to stand out from the competition.
Yeah.
I don't remember who said it, but somebody on the podcast said that, your next purchase is going to be based on your memory of your last purchase, right? So it's all about, and again, making it consistent. And I have to laugh though. I mean, a man cave in a shopping mall. Yeah, and even I could have thought that, yeah, maybe it's not such a bad idea. But then again, the importance of looking at the feedback and the insights and analysis that you get from doing these kind of initiatives is crucial, so that you can stop doing them if they're not actually
absolutely. And I think that the quote that you might be looking for is, how do you go from A to B? Well, it's via the path that you know. So people this is innately in how we do business. We go on our muscle memory, if you must call it like that.
Yeah, I just remembered from this summer holiday. I took my kids to Spain to a hotel where it wasn't one of those sort of all-inclusive hotels, but it was a child-friendly hotel. So they had every night they had a mini disco. So they have these two employees who are, there during the day. They had an air-conditioned room by the pool, so the kids could go there and draw and play games. And when the sun was getting and the heat was hitting them too hard. And then in the evening, the same two people were throwing these mini discos. And obviously, the kids were sort of liking it. It was a little, and it was very, not to offend anyone, but it was very based on the German people who were traveling to this hotel. So most of the songs were in German. The humor was very German based, everything. And obviously they did this. They threw these mini discos so that the parents would go to the bar and get drinks. And it's a nice concept, you're on holiday. So, and, parents can relax for a bit. The kids will be entertained by these two. Problem was they had one bartender in a bar as big as, this, and he was so slow. So that, the amount of drinks that the parents managed to buy during this mini disco lasting for 30 minutes was, probably a third of what they could have made if they had just for that half hour put 2 or 3 bartenders in the bar. So it's, sometimes you see that this is a good idea, but then they just fail to execute it. So yeah, from man caves to mini discos at Spanish hotels. Yeah.
This reminds me of something I saw just last month. I was in the Middle East and I saw one of these robo waiters bringing food to the tables, right? So it's these robots with trays and they bring food around in the restaurant. And I was like, okay, this is quite cool, right? And it brings value to customers because sometimes waiters are busy doing something, or bartenders are making beer for all the Germans, for a lack of better. So there is some kind of value, right? And it also brings value to the business because perhaps you can do with one waiter less. But what if I told you that this robo waiter was doing it in one of the more fancy restaurants in a large city? So it has value to your customer, it has value to your brand, to your business, but it's actually fundamentally detracting value from your brand.
Yeah.
So that's, I say, there always needs to be this balance between those three.
Yeah, this is so interesting. I'm just going to shut up actually, because I'm going to take us down so many, paths that's not going to lead to the next question. So, but yeah, you're really sparking my brain here.
Yeah, and I think it's such a nice, we're going a little bit back to what we was talking about earlier. Sometimes we just keep saying the same things just because that's what we were taught or thought like earlier. And I think you're spot on, Michel, when you talk about customer experience being much more than what we've been encompassing it with earlier as being customer experiences, because that is why we're lacking still in very many companies the actual governance and the mandates and the strategies that we need to have in place, because way too many still think that it's only about customer service or customer emotions, that they don't understand that actually strategically working with customer experience, it is about value creation on all levels, and it can be implemented and used, and the models should be considered in all aspects of our business. So I think it's really fantastic that you took up those 3 points there.
Yeah, Joanna, if I may, sorry, Merete, but if you, I think that in a lot of organizations we need to have that discussion. What is CX actually about? What does it mean? For some people, it can be that all-encompassing thing. But for some companies, they're just fine with having it really focused on very specific aspects like marketing, sales, customer service, product development, or brand. But at least have that conversation so that you know what your starting position is. And maybe the end goal will be that you are going to have it at the very end, that it's this all encompassing thing, but at least have that conversation.
Absolutely.
Moving on to the next question. Who do you think should own responsibility for customer experience within an organization?
Right. I've been dreading this one, to be honest. Well,
we got you there.
Yeah, well, I think that the responsibility for CX will evolve, much like CRM did in the past, much like AI will in the future. And head of CRM used to be a very legitimate job title, and we've seen it quite often in the past. Today, this is much less the case. While we see CX officer or CX manager roles today, CX will eventually become integrated into the fabric of the company. That is my belief. This means that everyone is responsible for customer experience. And as I said before, where CX sits today depends on your company's approach to customer experience, because it doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. It's that all-encompassing thing. And I think that I heard you say before as well, Merete, that I would also have rather a COO that is very customer-centric and that understands the game than a CXO who is just a vanity thing in the C-suite.
Yeah, I mean, and I totally agree. It really does depend on your company's approach to customer experience to begin with. And first, when you know that, then it's actually a little bit of a trick question, this one. But obviously, it comes from us having discussed previously, where do we need to put the responsibility to make CX have an effect? And then I think sometimes that we have approached it the wrong way around, because we should start with understanding what a company needs and then place the responsibility. But I mean, we've had so many great examples of suggestions for, CX being held, or, the CFO being responsible for it, or even HR, because it's a cultural thing. But at the end of the day, you're right. It totally depends on the organization and how it's built up. But I think we can all agree that if we have at least a CX program, then we should have a CX manager to have, and it obviously depends on the mandate. So, but yeah, it really is a trick question, and sometimes I wonder if we should swap some of these questions out eventually, because we've come to a point where we sort of we've gotten all the answers that we can to a question. So maybe that's something that we should be thinking of for the future, Joanna. But I like your approach, and I definitely agree. And I also love that. Obviously, I love that you agree on the customer-centric COO bit. You also mentioned, I'm going to try not to lead you into the next question. So I'm going to stop and just ask it instead of saying what I was going to say. But, considering 2024, we're halfway through the year, what's capturing your attention the most in today's customer-centric business world?
Yeah, well, I think we are at a very interesting period in time, aside from 2024, right? For quite some time, I have this feeling that we are really at a point in time where things are about to change or are already undergoing a dramatic change, and sometimes for the good, sometimes for the very bad, and that makes things brittle and non-linear, and it means that we have to build things that are resilient and adaptable. But because things are continuously changing, unrest is also settling in society. We saw the Great Resignation shortly after the pandemic. We saw many uprisings as well, which means we have to design with trust in the back of our mind as well. But what is the most difficult of all right now, and this is in my perception, is that sometimes we don't understand things anymore, which is very difficult to accept as well. Like, for instance, the solar storm that knocked off some GPS signals a while back and drove prices of corn up. Now, we don't immediately understand what one thing has to do with the other because we don't know the underlying mechanisms anymore. Now, in the case of corn prices, you can still imagine that due to a solar storm, Farmers couldn't use their GPS signals for a few days, which caused them to miss the ideal moment to plant corn, which caused delay in the growth, which caused a lower yield. That you can imagine. But when things get immaterial, like for instance with AI, I dropped the word, it gets complicated real fast. And yeah, I think everyone was flabbergasted at the progress of Gen AI and the things that it can do. And one of the things I was really genuinely excited about was that as it represented a variety of opinions, it could perhaps be used as some sort of sounding board to see what kind of feedback you would get in certain scenarios, synthetic feedback as they call it. But as we all know, there are some biases inherent in these systems. And the more we try to polish them out, the less useful these models become, because they become more average. So yeah, what will the future bring? I'm not sure. I'm not sure, because we live in this brittle, non-linear, unsettling, incomprehensible time. That being said, it does give us the opportunity to really think about what are we trying to achieve here. Instead of applying new technology to old problems, we should tackle the old problems in new ways. And I think that is the point in time where we are right now.
Yeah, I love that. And I think, again, I think I mentioned this before. We keep saying that we need to adapt to the new way of doing things, but sometimes all we really need to do is go back to basics, right? And just sort of understand how things work and how, and then maybe solve a problem all over again, because there are so many better ways of solving that old problem, or that, the 20 seconds, there are so many better ways today to solve that than what we had when that problem was solved for the first time. So I think we can come far with just going back to basics and rethinking a lot of the things, instead of keep thriving and wanting for more and new, and everything has to be, because at some point, and this is, not to be the party pooper here, but, the planet only has this much resources. I just read that we passed, I think this was back in August, that we passed the amount of days that we were self-sufficient by the Earth. So now we're sort of using resources that the Earth isn't able to recreate it within, the next, the cycle has, you understand what I'm trying to say here. So we need to go back to basics. We need to rethink quite a few of the problems that we've been solving, because we've been solving them the wrong way and it's taking us in the wrong direction. So hopefully we can use all this new technology to do that, instead of just always trying to find new things to do and new ways to make money and new,
Yeah. I believe that if we want to tackle the problems head on, we need to have this strong desire to understand how people work, how we process information, how we make decisions, how we allow change, how we facilitate change. And the thing is that the solution won't be A or B. It will probably be A, B, C, and D combined. And the only way to know for sure what it is to look in retrospect. Only in the future will we say that was the solution that we were looking for. We can only see things that we know right now. We can only see them with the glasses that we have on right now.
Yeah.
We don't know what the future will be. We can only tell that in 10 years maybe.
Exciting. I love this question.
I'm going to move on to the next question, and that is, what is the most significant challenge do you think that companies are facing today when serving customers well?
Yeah, from my perspective, maintaining a consistent customer experience across all touch points remains a major challenge. I wish we were beyond it, but we're not. The thing is that companies are more and more going at different speeds internally. And I don't say that to blame or shame anyone, because we're all being bombarded with priorities, day-to-day struggles, and outside influences. A few years back, everybody was screaming that voice was going to be the next big thing. You have to design for voice. Then it was blockchain. Then it was NFT. Then it was AI. Yes, as consultants, as outsiders, you have this you have the luxury of not having to deal with politics either. So yeah, I think that this is the biggest challenge that we face today.
Consistency. Yeah, I'm
So
totally with you. With Monette and me have been talking about this expression of customer CX washing, and this really comes down to exactly what you just said, Michelle. The problem is the internal different silos. They're not going in the same tract or the same sort of speed or the same direction, which is then causing that, the brand or the marketing is saying one thing, but we're actually delivering inconsistently in other aspects or parts of the customer journey.
yeah, it's like sometimes you could think that a company just forgot to sit down in their management group and say, so what is it that we're trying to do here, really? It's because everyone is just dancing to the right. It's like this silent disco when people have different music in their headsets and everyone is dancing differently because the music is so different. And everyone is having fun and everything, but it's just from the outside, it doesn't really seem very persistent, does it?
Yeah,
So,
no, that's true. Yeah.
So, with these challenges that just you specified, it's always interesting to put this question on the loop after, because then, what are the key attributes then to a customer-centric company? How do they approach these challenges, and how do they even solve them if they may?
Yeah. For me, there are 4 things that are key, and it all starts with customer understanding, obviously, deeply understanding the customer's needs, the preferences, and the behaviors, but also using that knowledge to inform all aspects of the business. So what it basically comes down to is curation. We as CX professionals or as practitioners, we are not necessarily gatekeepers, but we are going to curate, okay, what data is relevant in this case, and how are we going to disperse this within the organization? Who is impacted? Who is interested in this? So, yeah, one size fits no one. I think that applies here as well. It's not because you have some insights that everybody should be working with them, because sometimes it doesn't make any sense for finance to know this specific piece about the customer. So customer understanding is the first one. And then, of course, one of my pet peeves is employee empowerment. Empower employees, empower them to deliver a consistent customer experience, provide them with the tools and the training and the autonomy to make decisions that benefit the customer. And just on autonomy, this is not a binary thing. Either you have it or you don't. I think that there is this spectrum of autonomy where people are on, and it's not because you have zero autonomy today that you should have full autonomy tomorrow, because that won't work. Then you have chaos and you have anarchy, right? So I think that you need to raise that up to the point where you are still comfortable, right? And it also depends on what kind of organization you are in. A bank or an insurance company has a different level of autonomy than a real estate company, just to mention 3 examples.
Wow.
Sorry. And then 2 and 3 are, for me, proactive communication. We have a lot of insights these days. We have a lot of data these days, and we can actually proactively communicate things because we see them happen before they actually happen. And this is one of the things that I think we are going to make the most progress in the next years, is how are we going to proactively communicate with customers before things are actually happening. And then obviously continuous improvement, which is a 4th aspect. I think that is a no-brainer. Well, I feel that it's a no-brainer, but for some companies it's very difficult to continuously push that needle and actually improve every single day.
Yeah, and I mean, we've talked about the airline industry just earlier as well, and I'm surprised still by, having, again, with reference to the summer holiday, that, how bad they are at giving information, just the slightest little deviation of, a delay or whatever. It's so hard for them to give and provide, sufficient information. And it's not, it's not just frustrating, but it's just, again, I've been talking, and I know we've been discussing this as well, Joanna, how we as customers and as consumers, especially when we buy things that cost, that we spend quite a few of our money on, we get vulnerable because it's a situation where it's uncomfortable to be where you spend so much money and you feel that you're not being treated right. It's a reflex, and I think as humans that we get uncomfortable and we get frustrated, and our level of frustration is going to rise really, really quickly. And it's so easy for so many industries. I'm not just talking about airlines, but any given industry, to sort of calm us back down again with information. And it's right there. It's sitting right there. They even if they say nothing, like, we know this is frustrating, we have no information for you, but we will get back to you as soon as we do have information. Only that little piece. It's so easily sort of calming everyone down, but so few industries are using it to their advantage. And I think that is about, having that respect for the customers, having that not integration, but integrity. It's to be considering that you're actually dealing with human beings on the other side of that sort of invoice that you sent or whatever it is. So, yeah.
And acting proactively.
Exactly. It's all about being proactive.
And another sorry, Michel.
Go ahead.
Now, I was going to move on to the next question, because I think the next question also has a lot to do with the ability to act proactively. And that is, what is your take on voice of the customer management or understanding customers and implementing a program, for example?
Yeah. Voice of the customer, it's the beating heart of any program. They are really at the core of everything that you do. They are invaluable for understanding customer perspectives and identifying areas of improvement if they are set up the right way.
Yeah.
The thing is that many organizations today struggle to effectively collect and analyze and act on that data. And just the other day, I was booking something, right? Unfortunately, it's about an airliner again. Very sorry about that. And I got this post-sale survey. I think it was 8 questions or something. And the first one was, okay, I understood it. And it had this scale from completely agree to completely disagree, something like that. And they kept on using that scale, even though the question didn't fit that scale anymore. Yeah. So I was like, and then it was in some kind of broken English that I thought, what am I reading? One of the second to last question was, and I kid you not, would you recommend booking this cruise to other people? And I was like, hold on, honey, I just booked ourselves a cruise. I didn't book my flights. I was like, where does this come from, right?
Yeah.
So if you're going to set up a voice of the customer program, then at least do it well. Think about it, not only about surveys, but what are we trying to achieve? How are we going to achieve that? What mix do we need to actually get that kind of insight? Is it all qualitative? Is it quantitative? Is it via service? Is it one-on-one interviews? So it's probably a mix of those things. And you need operational data as well. So business outcomes, but also what is driving behavior. I think if you do that well, then you have a voice of the customer program that actually really is delivering value.
Yeah, and you need to sort of cover all bases. I think one thing is the qualitative and the quantitative, the one versus the other. I think we definitely need both. But then there's also, have you ever realized how hysterically afraid management will be to swap some of the questions in the survey, right? Because they're too afraid to lose the history. So they're more worried about what's happening in the the little mirror instead of watching what's going on in front of the car. And I think swapping the questions and even having focus areas, like you learn from a period of time and you understand, okay, we probably should be focusing on this going forward for the next, 3-6 months. and then you adapt and you adjust the questions to understand more about the focus area that you're actually working with, because you cannot fix everything at once. So you just need to, and then there's always, the idea of who is on the other end answering these, especially the quantitative surveys. What mood are they in? Where are they? What kind of culture do they come from? How would they interpret this language, this word? And like you say, the scale from very frustrated to not frustrated at all. How well did you like the breakfast? It's like, it didn't make me frustrated, but then again, I was a little frustrated when leaving, because so it's just, you really have to cover all of it. And we've said this so many times as well with the qualitative, that obviously that's our favorite, but you also need to have the statistically significant evidence to be showing too. And
also
so, yeah.
the unsolicited. I just answered a survey this week, actually, and I've told my car story on the podcast before, which, of course, if they were using Voice of the Customer program effectively, they would have catched the unsolicited feedback and responded to it already. But no, I got a survey which took 30 to 40 minutes to complete. It took 40 minutes to complete. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, is this possible?
And you completed it?
Continue to create such a bad customer experience after everything I've been through. So yeah, I have completed it, but now I am so what should I say, excited to wait to find out what happens next.
Yeah, nothing's gonna happen, Joanna, you know that. But still, you're stuck with the same car, right? So they're happy.
Yeah, I love.
You're still driving around. Yeah.
The experience, like the service.
You're still driving around as a big commercial to these guys, but yeah. That's the most painful thing about it, isn't it? You're just gonna want to swap the logo on the car, like have a sticker. It's like, I don't know. Obviously, you can't see this, but I'm on my work computer now, and it's a PC. It's a I don't know what brand it is even, but I have actually stuck a Apple sticker to my computer just because I am a Mac fan, but I'm not allowed to use that at my work. So today I was using the computer. So yeah, I've done that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I mean, we've talked a lot about the voice of the customer, and I think we agree it's important, but it has to be done right, I suppose, is the key takeaway from your answer there, Michel. I also we talked a little bit about technology, but I do want to hear your take on it, and maybe specifically from your branch, where in the call centers, how has technology transformed the customer journey, and also is all customer service agents going to be replaced with AI? Is there only going to be chatbots, or will we still be able to approach a human being every now and then? And again, how do you see that this has changed, I don't know, for the last 10, 15 years, 5 years?
Yeah, so technology has changed the customer journey, and it also has changed the way contact centers are operating today. There is no denying in it. It allows us to be much more efficient. There is this aspect of personalization. There is this aspect of convenience, has dramatically increased over the last 10 years. And there is this self-service, both for customers as well as for customer service representatives or still people working in a contact center, where actually they're being given the right answers while the conversation is ongoing. So obviously technology is doing great things. It allows us to do fantastic things even. But sometimes it also makes us so incredibly silly sometimes. Somehow we've started to believe that people want a personalized experience when they call customer service. I don't think that is entirely true. I think customers want an empowered customer service who can make things happen for you and who is competent. They want something resolved, not an ego booster. And it's actually very easy to fall for that narrative of personalization because it makes sense, it feels right. it sounds plausible, but because it sounds right doesn't mean it is right. I think that the future lies not in simply throwing more technology at the problem. I think it lies in understanding the nuances of human behavior, in recognizing that sometimes the most satisfying experiences are the ones that are simple, straightforward, and inhuman. Um, I think that is what makes our business drive. Just the other day, I read a paper that said that more than 60% of customers don't want an AI-powered customer service. Now, that in itself says a lot.
Yeah.
But then if you start reading how the research came to that conclusion, you'll notice that customers reject it because they feel that it will become more difficult to reach an actual human. Now, for me, that says a lot. We need to ask ourselves, do we automate? Do we put human in the loop, human in control, or human by design? Those are the questions that we should be asking right now, and we need to think about it really well when we're designing something.
I love that. And I just, there are so many thoughts going on in my head right now. But to begin with, we keep trying to improve, right? And as a metaphor, I also read an article a while back about this runner, and he was trying to improve his speed on 100. I think it was 100 meters. I'm not exactly sure of the distance, but he was really, really trying to improve. And then at some point, his coaches had sort of calculated how fast will it be possible for a human being, with the best sort of capabilities that you can have as a runner. They broke everything down, every component in the runner's body, and they concluded that I think it was around 9.2 seconds to run 100 meters, and after that you cannot go any faster because you need to have a certain heaviness. You need to hit the floor with a strength to be able to push yourself forward. But to run faster, the time that your foot is on the floor has to be shortened. So at some point, if you're not touching the floor anymore, you can't push forward. So, at some point, you're not going to be able to improve. It's just going to be this, and nobody will ever beat that unless, technology help or whatever. And to draw a parallel to the customer call center, at some point, we need to stop thinking that we can improve this with machines and automation and AI, because at some point the customers are just going to want their problem solved. And, maybe the most advanced customers can be helped with the most advanced technology, but then you're still going to have X amount of % of customers wanting to be helped, the old way, the old fashioned way. So, at some point we need to stop and just say, it's enough. It's good enough. We need to, let's help the other guys that are not all the way up into the, chatbots and yeah, so that was the rant of today. But it's just, sometimes we need to stop. It can't get any better.
It goes a little bit against my ambition to actually have that continuous improvement mindset. But I get what you're saying. Right?
I'm saying, we can always get better at customer experience, but I'm not necessarily sure that technology is what's going to take us there.
True.
At some point we need to stop thinking that technology is going to do everything for us and understand that this is about other components as well. The human factor, integrity, empathy, all of that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it boils down to understanding who you are as an organization and what you want to stand for.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's like that.
Cool.
Good.
What about employee experience, Michel? What role do you think employee experience and company culture play in delivering a good customer experience?
Well, of course, EX and company culture, they are crucial for delivering an exceptional customer experience. That is, I've seen that for the last 20 years, that if you have a disengaged staff, your customer experience will likely be abysmal as well. Engaged and motivated employees are more likely to go above and beyond for customers. However, it's important to note that remarkable experiences can sometimes be delivered even in companies with less than ideal cultures, and that may be because of strong systems and processes are in place, or when the product or service itself is highly desirable, or if that person that you are having on the phone is actually a very kind person, right? And I always compare it to the fact that it's perfectly possible to find a delicious meal at a restaurant with a chaotic kitchen. It's not the norm, but it happens. But then again, relying on luck or individual heroics isn't sustainable, right? If you want to have a consistent customer experience, you need to invest in your employees and create a positive company culture. So while EX and company culture aren't the only factors, they're pretty darn important. They're the foundation for creating a workplace where employees are motivated and empowered to deliver the very best possible experience for customers.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you sort of say you can't depend, on just, that one. We like to say disobedience creates great customer experiences because, it's the people who actually go, above and beyond to help. But yeah, you cannot just trust that one single employee is going to take your company to the new heights. So you have to be consistent in training and recruiting even and all of that. We're gonna have to ask the last question because we are reaching time for today's episode, which is always the saddest moment, but here we are again. And I'm having a difficult time actually having to choose between the two because they are so good, to say it myself and on behalf of John as well. But I have fallen down on I want you because I think, and I do have I do suspect that we're going to be, still talking about the restaurant industry here. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I do want you to provide us with an example of a company or a brand or, that exemplifies great customer experience and what we could learn from them, if anything.
Yeah, Merete, I think that is a great question to finish the podcast with, because I am biased. Okay, when I give you this answer, I am biased because I have the electronic music festival Tomorrowland in my backyard. I don't know if you know about it. It's 2 weekends of electronic music, house, techno, whatnot, and I think it's 200,000 people every weekend. I'm not sure. Is it every weekend 200,000 people? Anyway, a lot of people in my backyard, right? But they do all the things right. It's not just about music. It's really about an immersive, emotional experience from the mind-blowing stages. Last year, they had 7 waterfalls on main stage. I mean, can you imagine that? To the meticulously planned details. They create a world that festival goers never want to leave. For instance, I came out of Brussels South train station, which is an international arrival destination for the Eurostar, the Thalys, and then some trains coming from the Netherlands as well. And when I got out of the train station, there were already people waiting for the travelers, the international travelers who came by train to welcome them. Now, I mean, the festival was still 50 kilometers away, right? And they were already welcoming, putting them into that mood. They were already dressed as if they were at the festival. I mean, if you're going on a party flight for Tomorrowland, even if it's in Athens, for instance, you are on a flight that is with a DJ and everything. So you are already in that mindset, right? And I think it's not just about the good vibes. It's Tomorrowland's focus on customer experience pays off big time. They've built a loyal fan base that keeps coming back year after year, and the event is always sold out in the blink of an eye. Even me, who is hosting it in my backyard here, I'm every 10 years I'm so lucky to go, right? But there are 5 things. I think that there are 5-ish things that you can learn from them, and that is creating experiences that go beyond expectations and tap into emotions. Focus on the entire customer journey from the moment they start thinking about it until the moment they are talking about it, right? And make your brand stand for something bigger than just your product. I think that this is something that Tomorrowland does really well. It's about unity. It's about being very optimistic for the future, and it's about living in the moment. That's what they are about. And I said 5, but I'm only going to get to 4.
It's
make
all right.
things easy.
So bit to be better than me.
Yeah.
We
Make
watch-
things easy. I mean, super easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. As a former DJ, you know, this, I want to go now, but if it's so hard to get tickets, then maybe in 10 years I'll see you there.
Yeah.
That's the only downside, though. They should probably get a bigger venue, right?
Yeah, well, I don't think so. I think they are there for another decade, and it's also the atmosphere. It's the surrounding actually that creates that unique location. I must say, 20 years ago, when they told me that there was going to be a festival at that location, I laughed at them because it's the worst place to do a festival. It's in a clay pit, right? So it's always wet. If it rains, it's flooded immediately. But yeah, somehow they worked around all those things, and they've made a great thing that makes sense for customers, business, and for the brand as well.
It's very good. I don't think we've had a music festival as the example on any episode before, so that's also good for us that we can provide a little bit of diversity into the examples. We are at our I'm thinking in Norwegian today, so I would say at our way's end, but that's not how to say it in English. But we have approached the final destination of this podcast episode. If anybody wants to reach you there, Michel, is LinkedIn the best? We can drop a link to your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, that's the easiest.
Yeah. And Joanna, do you have any of your last famous words for the show today?
Yeah, for the show. I just want to say a huge thank you to you, Michel, for joining Manette and myself on the podcast. And I look forward to airing this show.
Yeah, it's been a great conversation. And I think, you know, it's the variations of how we think about technology, how we think about what customer experience is. It's what makes it interesting to ask the same, because, you know, you could think that it would get boring at some point, but it never does, because everyone has their own and personal approach to it. And also it's so good for us to be able to also, lift up our guests and promote that there are more people out there, out and about in Europe and in general in the world who cares about this. And it's actually a huge thing. So if you're sitting there as a CX manager or similar role thinking that, you know, this isn't probably something that I should be doing anymore, I should change jobs, don't, please, because customer experience is here to stay. And I can assure you that you will never get out of work if you keep working on improving the customer experience. So thank you so much, Michel. And to everyone who's been listening, thank you so much and see you soon. You've been listening to the CXPod. Thank you for listening to the CXPod. If you want to reach us, you can always find us on LinkedIn. And please remember to follow us on Spotify and leave a review of what you think.